We are ready to go.
All right, welcome everyone to our first of hopefully not too many budget workshops. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to take a moment to have a moment of silence for. All right, welcome everyone to our first of. Wow, that's an incredible echo. I'd like to have a moment of silence for Mary Jo Gallnitz, who passed away last evening. Was a planner here with the town for many years and a friend to many of us. So let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And I'd like to turn the meeting over to Town Manager Becky Hawk, and we'll talk about some of our outstanding questions and issues from the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. So to get started tonight, we thought we would go back over some of the questions that were raised at our last meeting that we needed to go back and do a little bit of research on or have some updated information to share with you. So we wanted to start there before we dive into anything new that you might want to talk about. Are you having a hard time? Is that better? A little bit? Okay, sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I don't know that my voice is carrying very well tonight, but I'll try to speak up. So the first item that we wanted to update the board on was some of the discussion about competitiveness with our employee pay and our plan to move forward with that. So of course, the 7% cost of living increase is in this budget, and then we've talked to you about moving forward with a pay and class study. And I'm pleased to let you know that Tanya and I have identified a provider for that study. His name is David Hill, and he works through the Piedmont Triad Regional Council of Governments. And he and his team complete these studies all across the state. They've been doing this specific work for 9 years, but he has over 30 years in local government human resources. And they most recently completed a study for Waxhaw. And we know a number of folks who have used David and his associates, and they have been very pleased with the work that they produce. So this is a departure from the MAPS group. They just didn't have the capacity to take us on, but we're very happy to have identified David. And based on his capacity, he's actually able to start this work in June, which we're very excited to move forward with a little bit earlier than expected. And so that will be the work with our employees and gathering the data on job responsibilities for all of our positions. And then they will work to gather the salary data starting in August. And it puts us completely on track with our desired timeline to have a completed study and recommendations back to this board for you to discuss market placement and those recommendations and look at what we're able to hopefully fund and implement in January. It keeps us online with that target date. So we have that proposal and are prepared to sign it, and just wanted to run it by this board first and make sure that you are comfortable with it. His cost is right in line with what we thought. It's about $31,000 for his work, and then there will be a little bit of travel expenses. So we expected not to exceed cost of about $35,000. So I'm able to go ahead and sign off on that. Just wanted to make sure that this board didn't have any concerns with that plan at this time.
Any concerns from anyone? I don't have any. Anyone else?
Okay, I'm seeing head shakes, so we will take that as a positive. We're very excited to get started with that, and we'll certainly keep this board updated on that timeline if it starts to change, but we feel good about the plan that we have been able to identify. The next question that came up was asking about the living wage in Matthews and Mecklenburg County. So we have information in 2 different ways for you to take a look at, and we're happy to email out this information to you later as well. But the question was specifically raised about living wage, and the living wage in Mecklenburg County is considered to be $18.75 an hour. That's based on a 2,080 hour per year work schedule. It's the standard Monday through Friday work schedule. So that equates to about $39,000 annually for a salary. And so these numbers do not include premium pay and do not include any overtime, but did just want to point out that we do currently have 17 full-time employees who make less than $39,000 annually. And if the 7% is approved, it would decrease that number to 3, but we would still have a couple.
Becky, can I ask a question?
Sure.
The 3, how much below 39,000 annually are they?
I would have to pull that. I was basing it off of their specific salary data, that they're close.
Because I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think it's kind of important to me to know that all of our employees are making at least a living wage. And if we have 3 out of 100, and how many?
180.
180. Let's bring them up so we can proudly say that all of our employees make a minimum of living wage.
Okay, we're happy to go back and look at that, see what that cost would be, and also make sure that it doesn't raise any concerns with internal equity or anything like that to perhaps bring that adjustment forward and provide a little bit of additional compensation. Otherwise, of course, that would be something that would also be looked at with the pay in class, and presumably based on the market, that would be adjusted in January. But if you're interested in doing it sooner, we're happy to look at that. Okay, all right. The other area that we wanted to look at was area median income. So this is again for the county. And these are, of course, some percentages that we've looked at with affordable housing. These are percentages that we've come to know as far as what they are looking at as far as income to qualify for affordable housing. 80% AMI is the typical cutoff for affordable housing, which in Mecklenburg County, $64,400 annually. And out of 180 full-time employee positions, we currently have 133 of those employees that make less than 80% AMI. We have 17 employees, about 9% of our staff, who make more than 100% AMI. So again, just for perspective, again, this does not take into account any overtime, premium pay, doesn't take into account other income that they might have coming into their household for other means. So, we want to qualify this and make sure that we're being accurate in how we present it. But if someone is living single or they are the only income earner in their house, these are the base wages that we currently have within the town of Matthews. So that 7% would provide some improvement to those statistics, as you can see in the second set of numbers. But this is something that we're very focused on and want to see these percentages improve as we move forward, and hopefully then keep them there, as these numbers will inevitably change as the area wages also go up.
Becky,
sure.
Is part of the salary study to determine how we fit with respect to the other communities in Mecklenburg County with respect to AMI?
So AMI would be a different look. That was just something that we did internally. But are you asking about like, would the salary study look at what other,
let's say Pineville, or
like how many of their employees are below AMI?
Right.
It doesn't typically look at it through that lens. We would be able to see based on their pay ranges or actual salary data. We would be able to see that, but that's typically not something that is part of the pay and class study. So the next question, will there be an option for our police officers to use their own cell phones if they don't want to carry 2 cell phones? Short answer is yes. That will cost a couple of extra dollars if somebody opts for the reimbursement. But we don't think that it will affect the budget significantly. So there's no change that we think is needed to that line in order to provide that option. So thank you for bringing that forward.
I have a question on that one.
Yeah, me
Sure.
too.
Does the reimbursement exceed the cost of giving them funds?
So the standard base reimbursement right now is $45 a month, and the cost per phone was like $40 and some change. I think it was right around 41. Yep, right around 41. So it's $4. So
A wash.
pretty negligible. Yep. Did you have an additional question, Commissioner Tafano?
No, actually, that was the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. The other one, we just wanted to clarify how many unfilled positions we have in the police department. So we just went back and double checked and just wanted to confirm that it's technically 12 vacancies because the 4 people that are on payroll but are in BLET right now, we're paying them, but they're not on the street, they're not patrolling. So they are supposed to take their certification tests in the next few weeks, and we will get them started. They'll have to go through field training, but we are looking at 8 completely vacant positions. We do have 3 applicants undergoing the background checks. So they're under conditional right now, but that does leave 5 that are completely vacant. No candidate has been offered or has accepted a position to start to fill that vacancy. They're continuing to interview. I know they had some interviews just today and this week. So hopefully we'll continue to chip away at that. But that is a large number based on looking at it as a representation of our total workforce in the police department. Yes.
Do we have any numbers about what's the turnover rate for telecommunicators?
We would need to run, looks like Tanya stepped out. So telecommunicators, there's a very high turnover rate, which is an issue in the industry. And it's also low pay. And it's a tough working conditions.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the average tenure is for a telecommunicator.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions? Sure.
With the 7% increase, obviously that'll affect the police department. Where will that bring us along among salaries in the competing towns? Not Charlotte, obviously, but the other 6 towns. Where does that put us?
We won't specifically know that until we know what has been approved with our neighbors. So we know that some of them are proposing 5% COLAs, 3% COLAs. So we know we'll gain a little bit of ground, but we're not sure where exactly we'll stack up or what those differences will be until they also pass their budgets.
So just theoretically speaking, if they were to have 0 COLAs and our 7%, does that at least bring it to where they were previously? Are we still competitive, or would we still be behind the 8 ball? This is the question.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so we can double check that. But based on what we know, I think we're still going to be low. And we definitely know that those towns, they're not staying at 0. So they're going to continue to go up a little bit. We just may close the gap a little bit. Do you want us to look at that more specifically and provide it to you all?
I'd be curious to see where we're standing, and if it's not too much work to see what the premium pay is doing to that as well, including with a 7% COLA.
Yeah, and that is a good point. You know, that does help their paychecks. But you know, I think it is difficult for them because they also know that it's slated to end. So it's hard for them to feel like they can count on it. But it is at least a little something right now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
The cost per resident for solid waste for the board, this does not include tonnage or fuel surcharges, but just for this board's benefit, and we can certainly share it publicly. It is $13.73 per month per residential unit. That includes solid waste, recycling, and yard waste pickup, all of those costs. And that totals just shy of $165 annually per household based on the current rates. Again, with a little bit added in, it would actually be slightly higher than that for the full charge.
I've got a question about that.
Sure.
Do we pay for the privilege of recycling?
I know it is.
I think we do, right?
It's a separate charge. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to know if there's, I mean, is Republic making money from our, I suspect they're probably not. I think recycling is a good thing to do, but probably not real profits. I heard particularly with paper products, there's too much of it to do it well, but I don't know. I mean, aluminum costs X dollars per pound, and we're probably giving away tens of thousands of dollars worth of that a year. Are they profiting from our, I'd like to know if they're making money from us recycling, and if there's any other avenue for us to maybe do that ourselves to recoup some of that money. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I suspect you're correct, but it's hard to believe that recycling is a losing proposition, especially with particularly metals are so very expensive right now, even on the scrap market.
That's probably because of the gas.
Could be.
Because I don't know what those trucks run on diesel.
They're probably diesel.
They're taking a big loss now with the price of what gas is.
Yeah, I don't want you to spend a lot of time on that, but I just, if you could dig in for a few minutes to see what you can find out. That's always kind of puzzled me that recycling is a losing proposition. I think I've read some articles that's the case across the country, particularly with paper. But
Yeah, I think I've read probably some of those same where I think the markets have collapsed. So it's made it even more difficult than it was before.
Mayor, also the Republic takes their trucks to the county facility, so they're not selling directly to the people using recycled products. They're paying for the county to take the products from their truck.
Becky, I know we have the data and we don't need it for the budget conversations, but what are the municipalities that are pulling this out as a line item and how much are they charging? I think we've got some of that data. It may need to be
We do.
updated,
Mm-hmm.
but that would be good to sort of evaluate.
Yep.
Thank you.
Happy to do that. And also related to solid waste, we will go out for bid again. The initial contract term ends in a little bit over a year. There is the possibility for extensions, but that is if both parties agree. And again, from what we've heard with Republic, they are not happy with the current amount that they are able to charge per our contract. So I would be surprised if they were in agreement to want to extend it. So we are expecting that it's quite likely that those rates could go up.
are there only two players in that market for us?
Seems to be, I'm not aware of a third. I know there's Waste
Not
Pro.
a lot of competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, several years ago, one of the larger companies did pull out of the area and they kind of condense it.
The other question was related to the roofs at both the police department and the fire stations, as well as showers at Station 2. The roof at police department and fire station 2 in Cruise Wreck, it's technically functional. There is no leaking, but it is showing some age. So there is a product, a sealant that the vendor is saying is likely to extend the life of the roof by about 10 years. So we are going to get a quote on that just to see if that makes sense for us to consider. Fire Station 1 doesn't have any known leaks, but we are having a contractor take a look. There's been some issues with some discoloring of tiles, and there's some questions about, is it, say, a sweating pipe that needs better insulation, or just a bad line that can easily be fixed, as opposed to something that's an active leak in the roof. So we're continuing to work on that. And then the grout at Fire Station 2 does need some work. So looking at costs for either the grout repair or just going ahead, taking out the tile, redoing the whole thing. Given the age, it may be smarter to scrape it and get everything completely in the way that it needs to be. So we do have building maintenance funds that we expect should be able to cover any of these needs as they come up. So we're not overly concerned if some of these quotes come back and it does make sense to move forward. We think we can cover it with those funds. And finally, what is the tourism fund balance? So projecting out to the end of the current fiscal year, it has taken some hits. So we are expecting that it's going to be down to around $500,000. In looking at what we have coming, that does start to give us some pause. We would typically like to see it retained around $500,000. But we do know that we've got the construction of Veterans Memorial Park coming up. So in looking at that, talking it over with staff, when we think about the increased costs that we're also hearing maybe coming with that project, and then just trying to retain a little bit more of a healthier fund balance, I am proposing, if the board is amenable to it, that we pause on starting the funding for the Matthews Downtown Loop, the segment on Tanktown Road. It does currently have a sidewalk, so it's not completely without a facility. We were planning on starting funding that and funding it over 3 years. But if we pause on that, it would allow us to take the 141,000 and put it into the tourism fund balance, which will give us a little bit additional padding to be able to more comfortably fund the park construction and then be able to absorb any unforeseen expenses that may come up in the next year that would be tourism fund eligible. So we do think that hanging on to a little bit more cash at this point is the wiser way to go with that fund. We've certainly hit that fund as much as possible on a lot of things. I know the windows that came up in this past year were an unexpected expense. And we did see some dips in the revenue during COVID. And I think it's just needing a little bit of a breather to recover a little bit before we move forward.
Becky, what can we do to make sure that Tanktown Road segment still remains a priority in future budget?
Yeah, so it will still be in the CIP. It would just be bumped. So it would be given a priority look next year. So the plan had been to fund it in 23, 24, and 25. This might just be 24, 25, 26. So it will get a first look next year. And depending on how the budgets come in with the bonds, that would certainly be a segment that we could look at and see if there's available funds. Try to send them that way.
Yeah, I just don't want that to fall off the radar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a question. General ledger account 6134 is cultural arts, and it is approximately 800,000. What is the difference between the tourism fund and that amount? I mean, what constitutes that?
Hold on. Is this one okay? Yeah, I think this one's okay. I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question?
The general ledger account 6134 is the cultural arts account. And so the tourism funds are in that. And I'm assuming since they're about 500,000, they're listed in the budget as around 800,000. So what is the difference? What is the revenue stream that makes up the difference?
Okay, so I just want to make sure. So this is the one that you're talking about right here. So the cultural arts budget, you're right, is projected to be $839,000 next year. So this includes providing the funding for all of the events that are held at the community center.
Mm-hmm.
And so a number of those are revenue generating. And so they charge registration fees, there are costs to attend. And so if you look then on in the revenue section.
Yep.
Under community center programs. So they are projected to bring in $511,910 in revenue next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tourism fund offsets the remainder. So the cost to hold events at the community center does not actually touch the general fund in terms of expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And that was it as far as the questions that we had from the board last time. So certainly have a couple more now that we'll follow up on and happy to bring back to you the next time we meet. But really the rest of the evening tonight is intended to be yours to answer any questions or provide any feedback that you might be looking for anywhere else in the remainder of the budget document.
To coin a phrase, I think we're feeling pretty fat and happy this year with our budget. But can you give us a preview of what's to come in 24 and 25 and what maybe some of your concerns are?
Sure. So what keeps me up at night? Okay. So we of course have revaluation in 24 and we are hoping to have the pay and classification study completed and implemented in 23. So then it is completely funded. It's all settled. Those numbers drive right into the budget for FY 24. There's going to be a lot of big decisions for this board as far as what to do with the tax rate at revaluation and how close or not you are interested in staying to revenue neutral, how close or not you might be to staying closer to the 29.5 cent mark. So we anticipate that we need to begin fully funding our pavement maintenance program in 24. That will be a big priority. That will be a part of that budget. There will be a few additional staff positions that we'll be evaluating more closely. We've kind of penciled them in our budget forecasting model, but the potential for some additional police officers, and I know a project manager for public works is a big one in there. But the big thing is going to be Station 3. So we are working, we've narrowed down the design build firms to 4. And we're continuing to vet those to be able to bring this board the recommended design builder. And if this board moves forward on that, that is going to then start the clock of when we expect the doors to open. And we'll need to make sure that we have the staffing in place, fully trained, on board, ready to go, and have that line up with hopefully the opening of those doors as seamlessly as possible. That's approximately an 18-month lead time, depending on supply chain and depending on if we can get everything in that we need. So we're going to need to be prepared to take on those that new staff. And I know that there's some interest in those folks potentially coming in uncertified, and us, finding 15 certified, qualified people in one fell swoop is going to be really hard. So we may be needing to take folks on early in order to provide them with the training and the certification opportunities so that they can be ready to go. So those are the biggest needle movers in my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question about other financing sources.
Yes.
In the summary page on the, there's 1.1 million and change.
Yes.
And then if we go down to the revenue section, other financing sources, I'm having difficulty reconciling against the 1.1 million based on that.
So I see the 1.139 here.
That's on the summary page at the top. And then if you go to the next reference under revenues, yeah, right there is the summary page, right? And
Teresa,
then continue on into the details under revenues.
which details are you referring to?
That would be, let me see if I've got a page number for you. Looks like page 88 is what I'm looking at.
Okay, I think I know what you're referring to. Is it, we've got the debt service page, and then we've got the contingency transfers. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's under the main title is tourism fund at the top, and then there's revenues. There you go. You
Okay.
got it. You
Yep.
got it.
So tourism fund is a completely separate fund. Then the other revenue section that you saw is all general fund. These are all revenues for the tourism fund.
So the term other financing sources has different meanings at different places in the budget.
Yes, so you've got the detail of
Okay.
what those specific other financing sources are for tourism fund. Same thing for general fund.
Okay.
They,
I can get down into the weeds with you later.
okay, if I
Teresa.
could just interject, I mean, they have the same meaning, but they don't all have the same makeup under there. It just depends on what, and it can vary from year to year depending on where we're needing to transfer money from or to.
Okay, so what was confusing me was the term was used frequently, and it had different connotations depending on where it was. So I'll get with you offline about that. We can go down through it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
When we had I guess when you presented to us last week, we talked about having that minimum wage for the lowest paid employee being $13 an hour.
That's correct.
How many employees would that, how many folks would be in that range of $13 an hour?
So that is for part-timers.
Yeah.
So I believe we have 29 volunteers that are going to be transferring to part-time status. So it would be 29 fire personnel who are currently volunteers that would be coming over as part-time staff. And then Corey, do you have an approximate number of how many? I know it varies throughout the year, but about how many part-time staffers you have?
So throughout the year, say anywhere from 15 to 18 that consistently work. And then we ramp up in the summer. We will add, well, this summer we're going to add roughly 10. That will just work for the next 8 to 10 weeks.
And then, I know myself and Commissioner Hoover kind of had some pause about that. That'll be addressed with the study that we're doing, correct?
That's correct. We've identified those positions. Interestingly, our part-time positions are not part of our pay plan. They've always just sat out in space separately. So we are asking that they be formally placed on the pay plan, appropriately graded, and then as say the pay plan moves, then those positions will move as well so that they don't fall behind the way that they have currently.
Thank you.
Mr. Garner?
Becky, I think 2 years ago when Dave Bland was on the board, he rallied to get the board able to have health insurance through the town. Are regular part-time employees able to opt in for those benefits as well?
Our regular part-timers are, and we define regular as they tend to work between 25 and 29 hours a week. It's a set schedule. And so there's only a few of those positions in town, but they are health insurance eligible. The temporary part-time status, which is what we're talking about with the fire personnel and the Parks and Rec personnel, they are not health insurance eligible. Because their schedules are very erratic and not set the way that the other ones are.
Okay, thank you. And as we are talking about this, maybe isn't relevant to this particular budget, but as we're talking about pay increases, is at some point it would be nice to see what the benefits town staff are offered and what they can opt into, because at the last meeting we were talking about the equivalent of somebody at the Quick Trip getting X dollars an hour or coming to work for the town. I think the difference is in what we offer is really in the benefits. So I would like to know, kind of not a deep dive, I don't want to know all the details, but I would like to see what we offer that's above and beyond what, a convenience store offers. And on that, and I don't know if this would affect the budget, but it's something that I think I would like for the board to consider. One of the benefits that I would like to, well, first I should ask if town staff receives a discount for programs that the town runs.
Mainly it depends on the program. We do offer some programs where town employees will receive X off. It really does go program to program.
Okay, I think adding that to, discounts to the benefits would be something that a lot of families would enjoy. And I think it's at the front of my mind because our family, this past weekend it was Beach Fest and my kids wanted to go. We can't afford to go to the rides at Matthews Alive or at Beach Fest, so we stay home. But if that's something, especially when you're talking about some staff being at 50% AMI, if staff has the option to attend to these programs at a discounted rate, it might increase their quality of living.
Yeah, I think a strip of tickets could go really far for some of the kids of some of our employees. That's a great suggestion. And just to follow up on that, we do have a benefits sheet that's very easy to send out. And we've also asked David Hill, as part of his paying classification study, he will also be doing a benefits comparison for us. So we'll get a look at not only what we offer, but how it stacks up to our neighbors.
Mayor, and while you're looking at that, I can't remember, do we still do longevity pay?
We do. Mhm.
Is that for all employees?
That is for full-timers, and I know that there's a slightly separate plan for our fire volunteers. And Tanya, do the regular part-timers get it? I think the answer is no. Okay. Okay, so it would be full-timers, and then it's a smaller program for the volunteers.
Excuse me, and where does that cap off at?
It caps at $1,000.
Say again,
$1,000 with 20 years of service.
20 years for $1,000.
The numbers have not moved in a long time.
That's pitiful. That is pitiful.
Well, to add to that conversation, I think I've made it pretty known that I'm not a big fan of longevity pay. I'd rather spend the same amount of money, but reward those that do the most work rather than somebody that's been around for a long time. That's just my opinion. And
Well,
we talked about it, and it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but
You know, Mayor, I look forward to it when I was on the highway patrol. And the reason I asked you what is it cap out to, I always went to 20, 25 years. Once you reach 25 years, you capped out. But we were capping out, and I've been retired 20 years. And I was capping out at $6,000 a year.
Wow.
That's why I say that's pitiful. I think when you first, I think you had to do the first 5 years to start, and then it increased a little bit so much. But that's
Yeah, it's the will of the board. Previous boards felt differently, and there was some risk prior of the whole program going away. So we were able to retain the program. The current program, looking at our existing workforce, costs about $80,000 at the current benefit levels. But if it's the will of the board to look at updating those cost figures, we're happy to look at that. We did plan on making that a part of the benefit survey to double check and see the exact dollar amount that those who are offering it, what they do offer. And that may provide some insight for the board to look at that time, unless you want us to do something sooner.
so when does an employee start getting longevity?
So you have to have been with us for 1 year, and I think, is it $150, $100? $100 for 1 year.
$100.
$100 for 1 year of service.
Commissioner Tufano.
Yes, GL number 4310, Office of the Chief. Is that purely for the police chief? Because I don't see a separate entry for fire chief.
That is essentially police administration. So that is, it's the chief, it is our crime analyst, it's our, I think Roy's now in there. The PIO is in there as well. So it's 4 or 5 positions within the police department, and then the corresponding expenses for those. We also consolidated. So as an example, I think fuel is a good example.
I was just wondering why there wasn't
Yep.
a
So-
separate line entry for the chief of the fire as well.
So a lot of it just comes down to the size of the departments and how they're organized. So this was something that got separated out a couple years ago. And so how the police department has budgeted is you see some of these consolidated numbers. So, fuel as an example, this is fuel for the entire department, not just for.
So the Office of the Chief, I'll look at the breakdown in the expenditure section, but to save me from scrolling through, is it basically the administrative staff to support the chief?
But by and large, so it's kind of the core function at the top of the department. So you've got the chief, the deputy chief, the PIO, the crime analyst, and an administrative assistant all fall within that salary line.
Okay. Would it be beneficial in the future to break out the chief separately for the fire department as well?
I'm seeing a head shake.
Okay. Thank you.
Becky, are we, excuse me, are we recognizing any synergies by ordering things from all the departments, for instance, like office supplies? Are we all using the same supplier so that we can?
We're not. That would be a central purchasing type approach. We have always been very siloed. I think it goes back to how separate the departments were functioning for a while. So as UKG continues to ramp up and there's efficiencies found in finances workload, more centralized purchasing is top of mind as far as what to backfill those duties with. And Teresa, do you want to talk any more about that?
Just basically that, I mean, that is a priority of mine, because I mean, it does help, and it helps us get a better handle of what we are using across the town to find better ways to save more money. And we have recently been working with Amazon, because they are trying really hard to, well, they've taken over the world, but they're trying to take over the government purchasing also. So they are really getting on board with state contract and with pricing, and offering standard, lower pricing on the standard things that we order. So I think it will be very vital for us to really dig in and get to where we know we're paying the lowest possible price for everything we're purchasing.
Yeah, I suppose there may be some convenience to operating in silos. So if the savings are a couple $100 a year, it's probably not worth it. But if we could save, $10,000 or $20,000 by buying all of our toilet paper and all of our, regular paper from the same supplier.
We'll just have to agree on the same brand. So I
Yeah.
think right now there's preferences in the departments, but
Yeah,
we'll work on that.
I'd be interested to know if there was, the savings would have to be pretty significant, because it is a little bit inconvenient, I think. I mean, different operating in silos does have some advantages, but I'd be interested to know what those savings possibly could be, because we want to be very mindful we're not wasting our constituents' taxpayers' money. So. Other comments, questions? I just like to say that I think I speak for this entire board that probably more so than ever since I've been an elected official, we are extremely supportive of our staff. And we know that one of the main reasons Matthews is an excellent place to live is because our staff is so awesome. And it's difficult to come up with a 7% cost of living increase and do a pay study and do more. But I think this board is committed to do all we can to make sure that our town employees' pay is equitable and commensurate with our nearby neighbors at the very least, Charlotte notwithstanding. But we're very grateful. We're working really hard to make sure that happens. So just want our employees to know that we support you 100%. Are there other questions or comments? Commissioner Urban. You can just say no.
No, I mean, I've gone through this quite a bit. In the first, you probably did the same thing. The 3 or 4 years you're first at it, you scrutinized every line item. You sat down with Hazen for hours on end,
Right.
And you couldn't squeeze any more blood out of the stone. So I've learned to trust but verify.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a very fair budget. My fear is the one coming up,
Right.
and I think we need to be thinking about that one very precipitously and get ahead of that. That's it. So I'm very pleased where we're at. I mean, we don't get this often.
Yeah, it's always much easier when we're not increasing taxes. It makes it a lot easier. If you sit up here, it's a lot easier if we're not raising taxes. Commissioner Hoover, are you on the line? Is she on? Do you have any questions? And we appreciate you staying home since you were sick. Commissioner Hoover, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I sure can. Do you have any questions or comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Apparently you can't hear us. I don't know how to tell. Can somebody send her a text message?
Mayor,
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I've got you now.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, do you
Yes,
have
I'm
any
sorry.
questions or comments? I know you and I have talked. You've had a lot of questions about the budget. Do you have any questions or comments for staff or for? Oh,
I did meet with Becky and we went over some of these things, but I did want to say, with the remark about Quick Trip, and if you're concerned about the benefits, pull up the website and the benefit. That's why I kind of focused on Quick Trip with all they offer. Is just amazing what all they offer and with the pay. And I just feel that we can do a lot better with our employees. I mean, they offer Christmas bonuses and credit union. I mean, it's just unbelievable what a gas station offers to their employees. And our employees are so special. And I just think we can do so much better for them. And I just use Quick Trip as an example because I had known what they do offer. So, and that's all I have to say. So thank you.
and thank you for staying home with that cough. Boy, she assured me she doesn't have COVID, but I still don't want any of that. In particular, I would challenge staff to look for things like Commissioner Garner said, discounts or even freebies to some of our town events for town employees is something that wouldn't cost us a whole lot. I think it'd be a really nice gesture if we could do that. Maybe not to everything, but have employee appreciation night once a quarter or something and go to some nice event for free. I don't know how many events we'd really charge a lot for, but that's something that wouldn't cost very much and I think would be a nice pat on the back for our employees that we could do. I don't know if there are other things like that we could do. Commissioner Garner.
I'm excited about the arts funding in this budget. And I saw that there was an increase for the sculptures or for public art. And this just as an aside is that I was bringing Mabel home from school the other day and she asked if Matthews is known for its art. And I said, I don't think it's particularly well known for its art. And she said, it should be. And I thought, Melissa needs to hear that. Like, she absolutely needs to hear that. And to see that that's increased in the coming years is really special and great for our town.
That's a very good comment. I myself, going around town, I'd look up and see a piece of art that wasn't there before and, smile. It's just quality of life. It's nice.
Speaking of that, there's a nice piece out front here. That's very nice. I appreciate that.
Well, this is going to be one of the shortest budget meetings ever. No other, I think everybody really, our eyes are on the next one. I again would like to very much thank staff and particularly Town Manager Hawk for pulling this budget together without a tax increase. And I think we're generally really happy with it. I think this is going to be a pretty easy budget to pass. I don't think anybody has any real concerns, correct? Speak now. Mr. Tefano, you went over with a fine tooth comb. Do you find anything else?
No, I didn't. But I do want to ask a question. I think it might have been a Charlie question, but maybe somebody with experience on the board would be able to answer it. When we're voting on the budget, can we pull out a particular general ledger account and vote on it separately?
So the budget ordinance is what the board is actually voting on, and that budget ordinance would be for the total amount within the budget.
Yes, I suppose if you want to remove something, now's the time to do it.
Yep.
Well, then in that case, I will make a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. The salary increase for commissioners is 40%, and we're only giving 7% to the town staff. I have an issue with that. And so I know that in the initial budget hearing, I was one of the ones that voted for allocating this amount and setting it aside. But that was before there was a 7%. We knew that there was going to be a 7% only cost of living increase. So how can we rationalize that now? In other words, preferably, I would like to stay within the same parameters as the rest of our employees. Any comments?
Yeah, I do have a comment on that. Not sure.
I do. I really do.
I think we're really comparing apples and oranges when people on this board are being paid $5,500 a year. I mean, you know, it's a small fraction of a regular salary. I'll say that.
Mayor, Mark, if you go back, I came on the board in 15 and was sworn in at 15, took office that year. The town had not had a raise in that time, the board. We did, I think, Jeff Miller asked that we were round off the technology allowance to 36 on it. But if you look at the years that the town employees received some type of stipend when we never did, if you go back and add up what they received from, I'm gonna say 13, because I don't believe it made a raise. I said it's 13 to now, and we've been behind cost of living. I don't think it's.
Well, that may just be an ignorance of history right now. So what was, have there been any increases for commissioners or governing body personnel over the last 10 years?
No, that's
Commissioners hasn't changed since 2009.
I think that's right, John.
It predates me, so we'd have to do research.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be clear, there's nothing in this budget to increase the mayor's
Right.
salary, but it is significantly higher than the.
All right. Well, that last piece of information helped a lot. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if we, based if my calculation's correct, if we did a 7% increase for on $5,500, that would be a $385 per year increase. And if we divide that by 24, there'd be a $16 per paycheck increase. That's almost insignificant. I just think we're comparing different magnitudes of
Well,
salary.
actually, it's as soon as I heard that there hadn't been a pay increase for commissioners in that long a period of time, if you do a standard cost of living analysis over the last 10 years or so, I'm sure that probably would come out very close to what's being proposed right now anyway. So I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Anything else? Wow, again, this is the quickest budget meeting we've ever had. I can ever, right, John?
When there are no budget increases or tax hikes, it goes pretty well.
Yeah, we'll make up for it next year.
That's right.
This year.
We're going to be grueling right to the
Yeah,
end.
It's going to be, yeah, right.
Mayor,
Meeting.
Mr.
So-
Mayor,
Yeah, sure.
I would like for us, the board, to keep the families of those in Buffalo, those families that was in Texas, and I want to thank in Michigan this past weekend. A lot of lives was lost this past, and especially the one in Buffalo. Me and Pastor Chuck been talking all day, pretty much hate crime for a young man, 18 years old, to head to a town of predominantly blacks and just target a 77-year-old woman just left the nursing home, visit her husband, stopped through the grocery store to pick up something on the way home. Well, she was the first one shot in the head. It's hatred at the up degree, and I'm glad to see that the governor and the mayor of all of the city is denouncing that along with the FBI and all. But just for us to keep that in mind as we go through our daily. You don't have to be in the wrong place in the times that we're living in now. That's why you hear me say, I woke up this morning, a new day. Time and day is special, and you hear Mary Jo passing. Just that quick, but just keep those in mind for me, if you would, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitley. I heard driving today, I listened to a radio program that was talking about that a bit, and it's so much easier today from when I was a child or a young man to be radicalized through the internet. So I think this 18-year-old kid got his information from somebody in France or something that, was suggesting and was also influenced by the Christchurch massacre. So yeah, it's crazy times, and thank you to our police. That's who we call to come help us when we have those issues. But yeah, let's hope that we never have anything like that in Matthews, for sure. All right, if there are no other questions or comments, I suppose we can adjourn. And I don't really think we need another one of these, Becky. We're good to go. Good
We're
job.
Totally good with that. We will pull together the answers to the questions that you did have. We can email them out. And if there's any follow-ups, happy to answer them at that time.
Can you make that document you were scrolling through available to us via email, the
Sure.
Word document? That'd be
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Thank
We
you.
will email that out as well. Thank you very much.
Do we need a motion
we-
to adjourn? I don't think so.
Go for it.
Yeah, I have one more question before
Okay,
we
go ahead.
adjourn. Were there any public comments? Usually we receive some emails about the budget, but I didn't receive any. And so,
I have not received any. So certainly we'll have the public hearing on the 23rd. So
I-
that would be another opportunity.
I did, Renee. I met with a bridge building group from Matthews United Methodist, about 30 of us. And they are aware of our budget, and I took an opportunity to sell the bond packet, and they ate it up. And I was telling them about the parks and the downtown mobility. They for it. And so we're the ones got to sell it. And I don't think it's going to be a hard sell to the citizens of Matthews. We just got to show them where the money is going. That's what they want to know for streets and parks and those types of things. And also the Rotary had a good cleanup of the parks and the creeks. One lady never knew where they made it. What's the park over there by you?
Squirrel Lake.
Squirrel Lake. She was so impressed with Squirrel Lake Park, and we had a good meeting there for lunch today on
That's
the
great.
Squirrel Lake.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for spending your evening with us. Have a good night.